Hello, Scott Myrie, Leading Edge Realty. Wanted to take a few minutes to explain the West Michigan Regional Listing Agreement. This is a standard agreement that is used in West Michigan by pretty much all realtors, and the wording and everything is all standard. I'm going to go through it and kind of summarize because there's 3 pages here with a lot of words, a lot of terms, and basically the first section here is just information about the house, where it's located, the term of the listing agreement, the parcel number, the legal description, the lot size, that sort of thing. The second paragraph applies to condos. If your house is a condo, there will be a unit number, there will be a condominium development name and stuff like that that will go in here. The Land Division Act is something that applies to non-platted land, and it refers to the splits that are available and how you sell splits with your land. Fixtures and improvements, basically anything that's nailed down or screwed down, permanently attached to the house, stays with the house and is considered real estate. Everything else would be considered personal property and you take it with you. This paragraph goes through a lot of things that are kind of a gray area, and people sometimes take them with and the buyers expected them to stay. So this goes over the things that need to stay. One of those being attached TV mounting brackets. A lot of flat screen TVs, the buyer expects that the mounting bracket will still be on the wall when they move in. So please read through this carefully, and if you have any questions on any of it, you can let us know. This line here is for things that are considered personal property but would still stay with the home. Commonly what goes in here, stove, refrigerator, washer, dryer. Those things are considered personal property, but if you're leaving them with the house, that's where they would be listed, is right here. The second line is things that are not included with the sale. So these would be things that are considered real estate that you might be taking with you. Commonly, if you have a curio cabinet or a shelf, something that you have attached to the wall, maybe so it doesn't tip over, once it's attached to the wall, it's considered real estate. So this is where we'd list things that maybe you're going to take with you, but maybe are attached. So we want to make sure buyers know that those particular things are not included in the sale. One of the common things that might go in here is maybe a workbench. If somebody has a workbench in their garage and they plan to take it with them, but yet it's attached to the wall, then we're going to need to list it here and list it on the MLS as excluded from the sale, and also make sure it gets on a purchase agreement. Heating and cooking fuels applies to propane and fuel oil. Basically, you need to have at least 10% in the tank at the time of closing. It used to be this was prorated, and they no longer do that. If you have an empty tank and we're going to sell it empty, then we're going to need to put that in here as an exception and make sure that that's noted to the buyer. Sale price, this is where we're going to put the list price, what we're listing your home for, and the terms that we will accept for the home. Cash, new mortgage, all the different conventional VA, FHA, MISHTA. Basically, these are all going to be checked unless you have a home that does not qualify for traditional financing. We pay 0 points and 0 repairs, just means that we are not going to pay the buyers points to reduce their interest rate, and we're not going to pay for repairs that their lender requires. Once the appraisal is done, there may be repairs required by the lender. At that time, it becomes a negotiation point between the buyer and the seller as to who will pay for them and who will do them. The bottom right corner here has initials for the sellers. If you click there and initial, you can move on to the second page. The top of the page is seller financing, which is land contracts. Unless you're willing to accept a land contract to your home, that will all be left blank. The brokerage fee, 3.5%, is the total fee that would be due for the commission. The 6-month is what's called a protection period, and that basically says that anybody that looks at your house while the home is listed and they end up purchasing the home, that you would pay them, you'd pay the commission for that buyer. The minimum commission is $6,000. That's total, so it's 3.5% or $6,000, whichever is greater. And all of this is subject to the variable rate commission addendum, which we're going to go over in a separate video. That's what covers the 1% listing program that we have. The participation in the MLS is what allows us to put the home on the MLS. We are offering a buyer's agent 2.5% of the sale price. Again, there is a minimum commission of $3,000. So the buyer's agency that we're offering, the buyer agent at $3,000 minimum commission, and the minimum total commission is $6,000. Possibility of dual agency refers to if I, as your listing agent, were to bring a buyer through and then represent the buyer and represent you in the transaction, that's a dual agency. I typically do not do that. This just says if it were to happen, we'd have to have a discussion about it and we would have to sign some separate paperwork. If I do bring a buyer through, usually I'm going to act still as the seller's agent and work on your behalf. I'll still do the paperwork and help the buyer, but I won't technically be representing that buyer. Licensees not representing the seller just talks about how if there is a buyer's agent that goes through your house, they represent that buyer and they work in the best interest of the buyer. So you want to keep that in mind. You don't want to disclose certain information to them, like maybe that you would take less for the house. Just keep in mind that that agent represents that buyer. Inquiries, I would suggest that if anyone stops by and wants to look at the house, that you point to the sign and have them give me a call. It's not real safe to have people going through your house, so refer all the people that might stop by during the listing to the sign and have them give us a call so we can schedule an appointment. The title section just says that you are going to convey clear title and you will provide title insurance to the buyer that shows that that title is clear. Possession and occupancy, we'll be checking the first box if the house is vacant or if you're planning on moving out soon. The second box, if you're still living in the house. This gives you a possession period after the close. Typically, if you're living in the house, 30 days is fairly common for a possession period, and sometimes 45, usually not more than that unless there's special circumstances. Marketing, this gives us permission to put for sale signs in the window and to market the home all over the internet. And this gives us permission to use a lockbox. We use typically electronic lockboxes depending on the location of the home. This box here just gives us permission that when we put the home on the websites online, Zillow, Trulia, that sort of thing, they do have ways that people can rate homes and put comments and that sort of thing, and there's really no way to stop that other than keeping your home off the internet completely, which we don't want to do. So this gives us permission to put it on the internet. Submission of offers. Once we receive an offer and we accept that offer, we are then under contract with the buyer and we cannot accept a different offer. So this just says we're not going to continue submitting offers until the closing because we can't accept them anyway. We will keep offers. If somebody wants to put an offer, we can keep one in a backup position and keep it in the file, and definitely have that available if something falls through on the first offer. Non-discrimination says that we cannot discriminate based on any of the protected classes. I think that all goes without saying. Modifications, anything we want to modify with this needs to be done in writing. Heirs and successors says it's binding on heirs and successors. Seller's disclosure statement, we have a separate video and a separate form for that. Basically, the Michigan state has mandated that sellers complete a seller's disclosure statement, and so we've got that provided for you in the other forms and another video explaining it. Same thing goes with the lead-based paint. Lead-based paint is a federal disclosure requirement, and this explains that you have to fill out a lead-based paint disclosure form, which we have provided for you, and also a video that goes along with explaining that. Disclosure of information says that once this house is on the MLS, bedrooms, bathrooms, sale price, all that will be disclosed, and once it's closed, it will still be available for people to look up. This box, checking this box, keeps you anonymous on the MLS, so if there's any marketing or that sort of thing done afterward, your name is not going to show up next to that address. It'll keep you anonymous. Indemnification says that if somebody's going through the house and they fall down the steps, it just says that the broker, the listing broker, would be held harmless if there's anything that happens inside the house due to the condition of the house. Consent to fees. This is something that really doesn't apply to us. This says that there may be placement fees and finder's fees and other things that ways that we might get paid from other service providers. We don't do any of that. A lot of real estate brokerages own title companies. They even own interest in lenders and home warranty companies and that sort of thing. So they end up profiting from more parts of the deal than just the commission. So that's what that says. It doesn't apply to us. And if it did apply, there would have to be a separate form that allows you to consent to those fees. And we don't have that separate form. Broker's remedies in the event of seller's breach. This just goes through, basically this is a legally binding contract, so we need to both abide by the contract, and if we don't, then this goes through what happens. Other conditions, subject to the variable rate commission addendum, which is attached. We have a separate video and a separate form for that. And the seller to pay a broker administration fee of $295 at closing. That would not be due until closing. Click down here for signatures, and we should be all set. Also on the bottom of this second page, there were initials that you want to make sure that you get clicked there. Click for signature, and this form will be complete. If you have any questions on any of this, feel free to give us a call or shoot us an email, and we would be happy to help.